Chapter 1, An Unexpected Transformation. I shall introduce myself as Mathamaniac, and I am, at this time, a 14-year-old Earth pony that was born and lives in Ponyville. My father, Zaenon, gave me this name hoping it would represent me as the mathematician he wants me to be in the future. My fur color is a blue that my father described as plasma blue, with him also stating that it has a hex value of number 3D9. The color of my eyes are a yellow that my father says is sunbeam yellow, with a hex of #C93B. The color of my mane and tail is a gray described as cardboard gray by my father, bearing the hex of #F0F1. Unlike most ponies, my mane doesn't really have much of a shape, so it simply curves down due to gravity and is completely symmetrical, and has a length of exactly 0.35 meters. My tail has a similar shape, or rather a lack of one, as it simply curves down with gravity's assistance. My mother, Trixie, apparently gave me the nickname Storm Cloud, which was barely related to my appearance since nimbostratus clouds appear gray since they block more light, and water appears blue in large quantities. Without any justification needed, it can be assumed that I'm a Mary Sue. Even then, I don't have a cutie mark, which was unusual since I am over the average age a pony gets their cutie mark. It is the 12th of November 2015, 6 a.m. on the human Georgian calendar and 12-hour clock respectively. I wake up finding myself on my back, before I proceed to rotate myself so my hooves are touching the mattress, moving my blanket out of the way in the process. While my mattress had a simple white color, the blanket that covered me had a white color, and an unusual amount of mathematical equations on it, which were of a black color. I start to crawl off of my bed, leaving my hooves on the wood that is my bedroom's floor. After this point, it felt like something was off, yet I was unable to see what it was. I simply ignored it, thinking it was just that I didn't have enough sleep. After that, I walk up to my door, which was made out of wood like the bedroom floor. I then put my hoof on the knob, rotating it in order to open the door. The door itself made a creaking sound as it opened. I then walk out of the door into the hallway, stepping on its wooden floor. Next to my bedroom door was my father's bedroom door, with a Z clearly carved into it. The great and powerful Trixie has prepared breakfast for you, Storm Cloud. Trixie, who is my mother, called at me by my nickname. Right after I heard that, I started walking into the kitchen, which was at the end of the hallway. When I got in the kitchen, I saw that Trixie's breakfast was simply an apple. This never surprises me, since every time she makes breakfast, it is almost always that. I started walking around the table that was in the way to reach my breakfast. The relatively low friction from the kitchen's tiled floor made this slightly more difficult, since there is a slightly higher chance of slipping. When I was closest to my breakfast, I took the apple with my hoof, brought it to my mouth, and took a bite out of it, and then rotate it, and I repeat the last two actions I have done until the apple had a shape that was roughly a hyperboloid of one sheet. After that I threw the eaten apple into the nearest waste container that was in the kitchen. "Thank you for making breakfast, Mother," I said to Trixie. "I want to ask a question. Why is it that you refer to me as Storm Cloud, when every pony else refers to me by my actual name, Mathamaniac?" "That was because of your appearance, Storm Cloud," Trixie answered to my question. "The great and powerful Trixie never told you this before, but I have to your father." I couldn't help but feel as if there was a more elaborate reason as to why she gave me the nickname. Her reason just seems to be a single fraction as to why I was nicknamed Storm Cloud. Besides, I started to ask Trixie, "Why do you consider yourself to be great and powerful even after my father overpowered you exactly 1 year, 4 months, 19 days, 3 hours, and 43 minutes before I was born?" "It is because the great and powerful Trixie is a magician," Trixie started answering me. "And they have traveled to many parts of Equestria, before they were married to Zaenon, and moved here. Even after that, the great and powerful Trixie still travels around Equestria." The door to Zaenon's door opens, making a similar creaking noise to the one that many wooden doors make. Zaenon walks out of his room, showing his Ubuntu orange fur. The stallion's mane and tail were a grey color, albeit darker than mine. His eyes were of a canonical aubergine. Zaenon steps into the hallway, and starts walking to the kitchen. Every time he took a step, the familiar sound of hooves stepping on the floor was audible. It took only a few seconds until he finally entered the kitchen, looking at both Trixie and I next to each other. At that point I took notice of his pseudo-horn he had made to use his magic, which was unusual for an earth pony like him. Even today I wonder why he is able to do it, but not any other earth ponies. "Good morning to you, Mathamaniac and Trixie," Zaenon greeted both of us. "You already made the same thing for breakfast so many times that half the time, I expect you took an apple and called it breakfast." "Yes. The great and powerful Trixie almost always takes an apple and calls it breakfast when she makes it," Trixie responded to Zaenon. Both him and I were unsurprised by this. "What is the trouble of making an actual breakfast then?" Zaenon asked Trixie. "Seriously, I've seen you do it approximately 4% of the time. And when you make other meals, you don't fall into the habit of making breakfast a single apple, you actually go as far as to making cakes. And that's not considering the fact that our species, as odd as it seems, is technically omnivore." "Calm down, Zaenon," Trixie interrupts him mid-rant. She looks at me. Trixie deeply apologizes for all this. "You may leave if you like, Stormcloud." "All right then, Mother," I responded. After I said that, I started heading off to the living room. When I got there, I started to put my backpack on. The first thing I did was sit down on the wooden floor of the living room, since the design for this backpack apparently demands that an earth pony sits while putting it on. Then, I grabbed the backpack itself with my hooves, which essentially was a white drawstring bag with some mathematical equations printed on it in black. After that, I took the white straps of the backpack and wrapped them tightly around my back, connecting the ends by a hook and loop fastener. Finally, I rotated it so that the backpack was on the right side of my body. At 7:50 a.m. on the 12-hour clock, I arrive at my school, Ponyville Middle School to be exact. It was founded exactly 5 years, 3 months, and 12 days after I was born because Ponyville Schoolhouse became a primary school. Back to Ponyville Middle School, the building itself had a flat roof, as well as the walls of the building being made out of brick, with windows on that wall in an orderly fashion. The door in the middle of the visible wall had a curved top, and like most doors in Ponyville, was made out of wood. The building itself was actually about 30 times as large as the Ponyville Schoolhouse, which was intended in order to accommodate the large amount of classrooms it had. However, this isn't the only part of the school, as there was also a gym and even a track. I start walking to the door before I suddenly stop halfway to that same feeling I had after I woke up. It seemed as if it had gotten stronger, and this time, I was able to tell that it was internal. At this point, ignoring it was nearly impossible, since it persisted regardless. Despite that, I continued to approach the door, making loud hoof steps on the way. When I reached the door, I put my hoof on the knob, rotated my hoof and the knob with it, and opened the door. After I have done that, I walk into the building, putting my 4 hooves on its wooden floor. The door closed behind me, making almost no sound in the process. I quickly ran off to my mathematics class, which happens to be the closest classroom to the school's entrance, and my first quarter class. Once I enter, I again abruptly stop, but this time to greet my maths teacher, Trigonometria. "Good morning, Miss Trigonometria." I greeted Trigonometria. She is a unicorn whose fur is of a black color, and her mane and tail had a solid white color. Her cutie mark was a white trigonometric unit circle, suggesting that her special talent is trigonometry. She has already taught me this 1 year ago, and as of now she is focusing on teaching calculus. "Well, good morning to you, Mathamaniac," Trigonomeria greeted me back. "Please go to your seat." Right after she said that, I start heading to my assigned desk. Once I get there, I stepped onto the seat so that my 4 hooves were on it, rotated myself as to face my teacher, and sat down. Quickly after I did that, I quickly disconnect the strap of my backpack. Then I proceed to take a feather dip pen and a bottle of ink out of it and put the quill dip pen and inkwell on my desk. Soon after, I put my backpack on the floor. A few of my classmates were staring at me, likely since I still don't have a cutie mark. "Hey you." Laveldcare started to tease me. The Pegasus colt's fur and wings were a neon red, while his mane and tail were of a neon green, and his eyes were a neon blue. His cutie mark was a green heart. "What takes you so long to get a cutie mark?" I simply ignore him, as they have done this many times before. It is as if he is trying to get my attention, but fails each time. Considering the name Laveldcare, it would suggest he is kind, but in this case, he seems to have went against what his personality would suggest he would do. In the meantime, Miss Trigonomeria took notice of the condition I had when I woke up this morning. "Mathamaniac, are you all right?" Trigonomeria asked me with a frown on her muzzle, suggesting that she was worried about me. "Come on. Explain what is wrong. Please be honest." "Okay, Miss Trigonomeria." I started answering her question. Apparently, when I woke up, I felt strange, like I was not myself. Despite that, I passed the feeling on as just not getting enough sleep. Yet, when I got to the school, the feeling came back, and was impossible to ignore. No matter what I have done, it still persisted. Oddly enough, neither of my parents took notice of this, and yet, you did. "All right, Mathamaniac," Miss Trigonomeria responded. "Back to the rest of the class. We will be learning about differentiation. Before we begin, I will give a sample problem. If f is a function of x that is equivalent to 2x, fx equals 2x, what is f prime x, fx? If you know, please raise your hoof." Immediately after she finishes the last sentence, I put my hoof in the air. "This one is easy." I started answering Trigonomeria's question. "It is 2, since the derivative of the a-linear function is its slope, and My answer is interrupted by my screaming as I suddenly feel an intense pain in my forehead, as if something suddenly started growing there. The area itself was bleeding, as a red, viscous liquid I recognized as blood started flowing in front of my face from where the area of pain was. Soon after, I fall out of my chair, landing on the floor my side. Looking behind myself, I saw a pair of wings that were starting to grow, causing immense pain to me, and bleeding where they started growing. I was in a puddle of my own blood. All the other students as well as Miss Trigonomeria were staring at me, unsure of what to do. "Please. Somebody help me." I yelled for help. Miss Trigonomeria runs up to me, stepping in my blood. "It's okay, Mathamaniac," Trigonomeria started talking to me. "I will do something about this." After she said the last word in her sentence, I went unconscious. 4 days pass while I'm unconscious. I wake up in a white hospital bed. Taking a look to my left, I see a heart rate monitor, beeping every time my heart beats. While I was surprised to see such technology in this universe, what didn't surprise me were some bandages on my body. It was quite obvious as to why these were here. It was because of the incident that occurred an unknown amount of time ago. To my right, I saw a bag containing red blood cells that was hanging on a circular metal hook, which in turn was on a metal pole. A translucent tube was coming out of the bag, with the other end inserted into my front left leg. The door to the room opens, revealing Ubuntu Orange Stallion. I immediately identify him as my father, Zaenon to be precise. The stallion walks to me, with a worried look. "Mathamaniac." Zaenon checked if I was in a well enough condition to talk to me. Apparently, he decided to visit me in the hospital. I don't know how this happened. From what I know, it was likely an overload of magic in your body, but I cannot prove that. What I do know, however, is that when you were born, you had an unusually high amount of magic, about as much as I did. As you aged, that magic increased in strength and amount. I knew it was only a matter of time before something unexpected was to happen. The incident itself happened on 8:02 a.m. on the 12th of November 2015. Your maths teacher, Miss Trigonometria, took you to the nearest hospital in the quickest amount of time possible, and then alerted Trixie and I about the incident. Unsurprisingly, the school continued operations as normal after that incident. Unfortunately, however, news about this incident ended up getting circulated all over Equestria. Some of these news articles just so happened to have hilariously bad titles such as "Random Event in Ponyville Middle School." Zaenon's voice lowers down in tone. Aside from the article titles, the distribution all around Equestria worries me, since the princesses might hear about it. Zaenon, I started to ask him something. How long has it been since that incident? Right now, it is 4 p.m. on the 16th of November 2015, Zaenon started to answer my question. The exact amount of time is 4 days, 7 hours, and 58 minutes. Father, I said, worried about my condition, when will I be in good condition to leave this hospital? Considering the work the doctors have done so far and what they have said to me about your condition, you will be able to leave this place in 1 day, Zaenon said as an answer to my question. However, I want you to see something, yourself to be exact. Zaenon looks around the room for something. He notices a large mirror on the ground, and proceeds to use a form of magic on it with his false horn. An orange aura surrounded the mirror. Shortly after that, the mirror started moving to me. It stopped moving when there was a distance of exactly 2 meters between me and the mirror. The aura disappears, but the mirror stays in place. Yes, I brought this mirror with me, Zaenon claimed. The only reason why I brought it with me was so you could look at yourself. Shortly after the last word in his sentence, I looked to the mirror. The reflection on it surprised me. From what I could tell from the reflection, I noticed there was a pair of wings located close to my withers with the same plasma blue color as my fur, and a horn of the same color on my forehead. I was lying down on the bed still, too weak to get off of it at the moment. It is unusual that such a sudden change could happen. I discuss my thoughts to Zaenon about these events and my transformation. There should have been no possibility of such event, considering the fact that a pony is likely to die in such an event. But I am still alive, recovering from the blood loss and other things caused by said event. Mathamaniac, Zaenon started to tell me something. It is best that you get some more rest, alright? I quickly go back to sleep, closing my eyes as I stop thinking about the incident. Chapter 2, Demanding an Explanation. It is the 17th of November 2015, 10:13 a.m. I was sitting at my desk for my Ponish class. The patterns in its light brown would always remind me that it is my desk for this classroom. In front of me and the desk was my Ponish teacher, Miss Dipquill. She was an earth pony, with light grey fur, and a dark grey mane and tail. Her eyes had a light blue color, while her cutie mark is a book with a light blue color. All the other students were staring at me, as confused as I am for me transforming into an Alicorn a few days ago. All right class, Dipquill started to instruct us. Please get out the Ponish reading textbooks from under your desk. As for you Mathamaniac, Dipquill rotates her head to face me, can you please explain why you are an Alicorn now? The last time I saw you, you were an earth pony, but this time it is not the case. Okay then, I start to answer her question. On the 12th of November 2015, I was on my usual schedule. However, I just felt different that day. When I arrived at school everything was normal, until 8:02 a.m. on that day. At that point of time, I started to transform into an Alicorn against my will. My mathematics teacher, Miss Trigonometria, was the first to respond, and took me to the closest hospital. My father theorized that my excessively high amount of magic has caused the transformation, but neither of us can be sure about it. That is absurd, yet understandable, Dipquill replied to my answer. Back to the rest of the class. Once you get your books, please turn to page 39. Following the steps she gave the students, reached with my hoof for the reading textbook. Once I got it, I place it on my desk. After that, I proceed to open to page 39, as my teacher instructed. The page was the beginning of a text of a fiction work, namely False Friendship. This story was about a pony named Woolcoat Shield that had their life put on edge by a false friendship. I started to read this story, thinking about how the different events in different parts of the story have a strong connection with other parts. It is a very interesting story, as it makes one wonder exactly how events are connected. Time has passed rather quickly for this, since it is now 11:20 a.m. By this point of time, I have read the story, and done all the work my teacher gave me. Of course, it is at this time that this school's lunch starts, so I start leaving out the classroom door. As I walk through the hallway connecting the classrooms and cafeteria, I notice that every pony was staring at me, confused with what they are seeing. By the time I reached the cafeteria, the line of foals waiting to get their lunch was surprisingly short at this time. Rather quickly, I run to the back of the line, before waiting patiently to get my lunch. 5 minutes later, I have finally in the area to get my lunch. I got what is usually served, a muffin and an apple. After that, I went to the nearest table to sit down in it and eat my lunch. An earth pony with light red fur sits next to me, staring at me with a confused look. Hello there, they greeted me, nervously. Their voice suggested they were a male. What is your name? My name is Mathamaniac, I answer his question. Can you give an explanation as to why you are nervous? It's just that you look beautiful, he replied. Are you all right with that? The nervous colt stared at me, more nervous than when he first saw me. Yes, I reply to them. There is nothing wrong about it in my opinion. It is 4 p.m. I was at my house. There was no sound being made at the moment, except for some voices coming out of Zaenon's room. As I was curious about what was going on, I walked to his door. I open it, causing it to make a creaking noise. There's another pony in there sitting with Zaenon at a small rectangular table, and they looked similar to Zaenon. I stood there, confused as to why this clone is present. The clone on the other hoof was staring at me, wondering why I was here. He started to speak out. Hey you! He yelled at me. The stallion looked angered. What are you doing here? Don't you understand we are having a meeting? I was just curious, I claim. The clone took my word. Also, who are you? My name is Mathamaniac. My name is Timatic Zaenon, but you can refer to me as Timatic, he answers to me. I'm not from this universe. In fact, I met Zaenon accidentally while trying to find something from another universe. Say, do you have any relation to Zaenon? I'm Zaenon's daughter, I state. And as a side note, I was originally an earth pony, before I somehow transformed into an Alicorn. Even I am unable to understand how it could have happened. Very well, said Timatic. Please have a seat. We will discuss this. After he said that, I start walking to the open seat next to Timatic. Once I got there, I took a seat in the wooden chair. Are there any other clones? I presented Timatic a question. If so, who were they created by? Not exactly clones, Mathamaniac, Timatic told me. But yes, there are other Zaenons from alternate universes, and I am one of them. I don't know what an alternate universe is, I said to Timatic. Can you please explain? I already know what a universe is, and that Zaenon is not from this universe. All right, Mathamaniac, Timatic said to me. By definition, an alternate universe is a universe that shares a few similarities to the universe it is based on, but is also different in a way. For example, there could be a universe where Jupiter never existed, and the mass that made up Jupiter is part of the Sun. There can also be a universe where the Sun never formed in the first place, or one where life on Earth always consisted entirely of simple unicellular life. Of course, these are possible. I understand now, I said. I am going to leave, so you can continue your meeting. Thank you for the convenience. After that last word, I got out of my chair, and slowly walked out of Zaenon's room. Once I was out, I rotated myself to face the door, and then closed it slow enough to not make any noise. Well, I hope you will be okay, Zaenon. If you truly are related to them, I'm sure you will be safe. I start walking to my room. However, my attention was caught by a strong presence somewhere. I couldn't make out what it was, or why it was there, but all I knew was that it isn't anywhere in the house. Too distracted by the odd presence, I left my house, closing the door behind me. For some reason, the sun was starting to set earlier and faster than usual. Regardless, I headed to the source of the presence, unaware of where I was actually going. It is 5:48 p.m. I have apparently left Ponyville and went through the majority of Canterlot to find the presence. For some reason, it is night right now, which is unusual considering that the Earth's rotation must have been sped up for that to be possible. The visible part of the moon was a waxing crescent, about 33% lit. However, what I was actually looking at was the Canterlot Castle. The majority of the outside walls were white, but the roofs took many different colors and patterns. The castle itself was a few orders of magnitude larger than Ponyville Middle School. Also, the majority of the castle had rather unique curvature that I had never seen in Ponyville. It seems as if the presence originates from inside it as well. As I walked to the doors of the castle, I noticed the other ponies were staring at me, confused. Being around so many ponies at once, I felt nervous, but I kept walking to the castle doors. However, I heard some hoofsteps behind me. When I looked, there was a generic guard. Their fur was white, like the majority of the guards I have seen before. Even with a suit of armor on them, I was able to tell that they were a Pegasus. "Hello, Mathamaniac," they greeted me. Their voice seemed feminine. "Princess Celestia wants to see you for something, likely because you have been transformed into an Alicorn." "That is understandable," I said. "I hope they can reverse the transformation, if possible. I'll follow you into where they are." The guard went in front of me so I could follow her. After getting a distance of 3 meters, I start to walk behind her, taking the same path she is taking. It is 6:20 p.m. The guard has reached the doors to the throne room, and the presence had gone away. The hallway we were in was of a simple white, with gray floors. However, the door was made out of wood with gold lining, and there were 2 symbols on it. The first symbol was made out of gold, and it appeared to be the Sunday. The other symbol was made out of silver, and was a crescent moon. The door was about 10 meters tall, with the top having an unusual curvature that abruptly changes in the middle. The guard opens the door to the throne room, and I see the 2 princesses in their thrones as I walk in, and both were Alicorns. Princess Celestia's fur was completely white, while her mane and tail was flowing without the presence of wind. Her mane and tail had 4 colors on them, namely pink, green, purple, and blue. Her cutie mark was a representation of the sun, considering that she is responsible for rotating Earth to make the side of Earth that Equestria is on face the sun. Princess Luna's fur, however, was a dark blue. Her mane was of a lighter shade of blue, with sparkles that are likely representing stars. Her cutie mark was of a depiction of a crescent moon, considering she rotates the Earth to make Equestria face the moon, and might also have the ability to manipulate the moon's orbit. "Hello, the Mathamaniac," Princess Celestia greeted me. "I have heard that you were somehow transformed into an Alicorn, and seeing you right now, that is apparently true." If anything, I start to tell Celestia something. I'm not sure why it happened, but my father theorized that it was from a buildup of magic. Is there any way to reverse this? Unfortunately, there is no way, Mathamaniac, Celestia answered my question. It seems that you will have to stay in that form for your life. However, your transformation actually reminds me of something. Can you please explain? I asked Celestia what my transformation reminded her of. It actually reminds me of how a true Alicorn comes to be, Celestia stated. I never told Twilight before, but she is a false Alicorn. You see, most ponies in Equestria don't have a high amount of magic, so I had an idea. I founded the school for gifted unicorns. The purpose of this school was so I could find a potential replacement if I were to leave or somehow die. The most potential student I had so far was Twilight Sparkle, and I transformed her into an Alicorn about 17 years ago. Back to how a true Alicorn is created. Even I don't know why it happens, since not much is known about Alicorns. However, I do have memory of when I became an Alicorn. While I have no memory of the area itself, I remember that I was an earth pony, and that there I was in pain as my wings and horns suddenly started to grow. It felt like I was going to die, yet I didn't. I was lying down on the floor when I regained consciousness, having barely enough strength to stand up. That is all I remember. It is rather surprising that you survived that, I state. In such an event, most ponies would simply die from the blood loss. However, I have a question. I look at her in the eyes. Aside of how they come to be, what are the most crucial differences between true Alicorns and false Alicorns? The most crucial difference between true and false Alicorns is their magic, Celestia told me. True Alicorns tend to generate magic much faster than false Alicorns, which generate their magic at the normal rate. Mathamaniac, you are dismissed for today, but before you leave, I will give you something. Somewhere in the back of the room, a white aura surrounds a scroll. The scroll moved up off of the ground, ignoring gravity as if it had no mass. The scroll is moved to be in front of me, before the aura surrounding it disappeared and it fell to the ground. That scroll contains information on how to use a teleportation spell. It is best that you study it so you can easily teleport here tomorrow. If you lose it, there is no need to worry, as there are many copies around Equestria anyway. All right then, I said as I grabbed the teleportation spell scroll with my hoof. Interestingly enough, I forgot to take my backpack off when I got home, and as a result I unintentionally brought it with me. Taking advantage of this, I put the scroll in my backpack, though one of the rollers was sticking out enough to be noticeable. I will see you tomorrow. I leave the throne room, and started to go back to my house. It is 8:51 p.m. At this point of time, I was facing Zaenon in the living room. He seemed angry that I went somewhere else without his permission. Trixie was also angry at me for similar reasons. Mathamaniac, Zaenon yelled at me. The stallion's expression made it obvious that he was angry. Why did you leave? It all started with the presents, I make a claim in a calm voice. And I was curious about what it was. I end up going to Canterlot while trying to get to the source of the presents, and then a guard told me that I had to meet with Princess Celestia. In that oddly short meeting, she told me that she heard of my transformation, and how it reminded her of something. I never found the source of the presents, but I suspect that it was from Princess Luna, considering the fact that the sun was setting earlier than usual when I left. All right, Mathamaniac, Zaenon said to me with a calmer voice. Please do not leave like that again, all right? I nod my head in agreement. Some pony could have hurt you, or even worse, kidnapped you. Also, Zaenon points his hoof to the teleportation spell scroll. What is that for? It is a scroll containing a teleportation spell, as well as information on how to use it, I said to Zaenon. Princess Celestia gave it to me before I went home. Well, you should get some rest, Mathamaniac, Zaenon advised me. After I heard the last word of my father's speech, I started to walk into my room, bringing the scroll with me. The only sound was from the hoofsteps of both me and Zaenon. When I got to my bedroom door, I opened it, before I proceeded to walk into my room. The first thing I did was take my backpack off, setting it beside my nightstand. I then leapt up onto the bed, before rotating myself so my back was on the bed itself. After doing that, I grabbed my white mathematical equation-covered blanket with my hooves, and pulled it to cover my body. I go to sleep, closing my eyes and losing focus on the events that happened today.